Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Spark Live. My name is Taylor Hill. I'm a Spark marketer, and I have with me my co founder and partner, Carter Harkins.
Hey,
And we
everybody.
are going to just jump in today to this topic, which hopefully you guys will take and run with and make sure that you are doing everything you need to do on your website, because we want to let you know there's one mistake you cannot afford to make with your website. It's really important. You got to own, control, improve, and maintain that site because it needs to be your property. And that really is. I know everybody kind of builds up and builds up to the end to tell you what the one mistake is, but we're letting you in on it right from the beginning because we want to talk about how to make sure that, yes, you are in control of your website, you own your website, and all those good things. So, Carter, just let's talk a little bit about the why here. Why in the world is it important to control your website and own it?
Yeah. So before we jump in, just as people join and come into the call, just make sure you chat us and let us know that you're here, so that we can say hey and acknowledge you and appreciate you being here. So to the topic, why is it important to control your website? I think this is something we went back looking at, like a presentation we did, I want to say 8 years ago now. And this was one of those topics that we talked about 8 years ago. And it's no less important today. In fact, in some ways, and we'll talk about it as we go, it's more important now than it's ever been. Hey, Jillian, good to see you. Thanks for being on. So controlling your website. Let's talk about like ways that people think they control their website, but they don't really, right? So they think they own their domain, but they're not sure, right? So they don't know exactly how it gets renewed every year. Is it automatic on my credit card, or does my web company take care of that? Or is it, like how does it get paid for? How does it get taken care of? That's not controlling your website. The other ways that people don't control their website is give up the control to someone else and not know exactly how to continue to have access and control that way. So we always make it a point with our clients to, even though we get access to be able to control certain parts of their website or control the whole thing, they still have the keys too to be able to go in and access what they need access to. So that's another way that we don't control that you might not control your website even when you think you really do. The easiest way to know if you don't control your website is if something goes wrong and you don't have the access to be able to make it right. That's how you know. But unfortunately, at that very moment, that's usually that's a moment too late to find out that you don't control your website. Why is it important? Because it's the only thing online that you control. That is the reason it's important. You don't control Facebook. You play on Facebook's playground. You don't control Google, even though you play there. You don't control any of the places that you appear online except for one place, and that is when somebody goes to the web and types in yourwebsitedomain.com and comes to your web page and sees your website. That's the only thing you control, and that's why it's important. Wow, we've got a lot of people joining. Hey, Chuck, Ted, appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you.
Well, it's actually Linda. She's pretending
Oh
to
yeah, I read.
be.
Gotcha. Hi, Linda.
Uh, the other thing about that is all the roads really should lead to your website. Even though you're doing business off your website, many of you guys are definitely on social media. I mean, you're on Facebook right now and YouTube. You're doing things in other areas. You may be doing some things on other websites that you're doing some guest stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of things across the internet that you may be doing. But the reality is, if those things don't lead back to your website where you can inform, instruct, and then have a really good call to action, then where do you go? It's like driving. I'll never forget. This has happened a long time ago. I was driving and my accountant was actually sitting in the car and he's like, Taylor, you got to go left right now. And instead of looking at traffic, I just went left. And somebody was trying to pass me and I ran into him. Yeah, I got a ticket and I busted my car. Lesson learned. But that's the problem, is when you got to know where your roads lead. You got to know where you're going. And it makes a difference because you want to control that first impression when they get to that site. So you could get to control the look, the feel. If it's got videos, pictures, all those things on there are under your control. So it's really, really important to do that.
Yeah, one of the things that we see too is, the business owner that has decided that most of their business comes from other places and not from their website. Like, people find them on, just directly from a Google ad and they call straight from the ad, or, Facebook or Angie's List or Yelp or, any number of other places. And so they discount the fact that their website is as important as it maybe once was. But I would say that it's for that very reason that your website is perhaps even more important than it's ever been, is because so many of the sources of of new leads and new customers are taking place elsewhere. And because you don't control all the other places, it becomes that much more important to make sure that you maintain a solid property online that you own, so that if anything ever changes out there, if Google suddenly decides to monkey with the works and suddenly it dries up that source of leads, you still have a solid place that you can back up to, right? It's the military principle of, you control the fort, right? You go from the fort out into the battlefield and you advance your front, but if you get beat back, you go back into the fort and you hole up, and you protect yourself there. So your website is kind of like that. It's something that's perhaps even more important now than it's ever been, because the land that we're trying to take doesn't belong to us. We don't own it, and we never will. We'll never own Google. We'll never own Facebook. We'll never be able to exert control over the way that they behave and how they could impact our business. So it's important to own something online that secures your presence no matter what else is happening in those other places.
I think it's also, I want to note something right here because I think this is really important. Your website, because it's your property, when you go to sell a business, you have something to show the potential buyer, something that works, that you've got analytics, stats, the whole 9 yards. We've got 2 really long-term clients that this year have both sold their businesses, and they got more money for their businesses because they were able to show what the website and what the marketing was doing. So, don't discount your website and the importance of it if you want to get into a position where you can sell your business. Because I've heard so many people say the only thing I'm ever going to be able to sell is my equipment. Well, yeah, if you don't have a business that you can show works and runs and actually is kind of on autopilot, and it's not really, but it is and it's not. But if you can show that you've got something that brings in those leads, then the buyer wants that. I mean, that's a property that they want to grab. So build that up. Make sure that man, if you're ever in a position where you sell your business, you've got something to really sell there. I think that's really important. So let's go to our next big topic here. Okay, how do you make sure you own your website, your content, your design, the images, and the code?
We could probably talk a lot about the various things that we see happening online, just like almost on a daily or weekly basis. People that get reports that, oh, you used an image on your website that belongs to me, and because that's my property and you're using it without my permission, you owe me money. A lot of times that's a scam, but it's not always a scam. I mean, the reason it works is because people do it and they shouldn't be doing it. and there's a fear that they've been caught doing something they're not supposed to do, and that's how you get suckered into paying people money that you really may not owe them. But if you are using images that don't belong to you, you can get in trouble there. The content on your website, if somebody else wrote it and you don't know whether or not you own it, in other words, if you ever moved your website to a different marketing company, what happens to that content? Does it belong to you, or does it belong to the marketing company that wrote it, whose staff writer is the one that wrote it? If that's not specified, then you may be caught in a situation where, congratulations, you own a website that it has a bunch of blank pages because you can't use the content until it's rewritten. The design of the website, the theme of the website, the colors, the branding, all of that stuff that you think you own, if somebody else built it and you didn't read the contract and you don't know what happened. We see this all the time with companies like, well, I want to call them Yellow Pages, but they're not Yellow Pages anymore. They go by any number of other names out there in the marketplace. But it was the same old tricks. You sign up for a year's contract or a 2-year contract. They're going to build your website, and then you don't see the results that you want to see, and you want to leave. Come work with a company like ours, and then we find out that, okay, not only are you wrapped up in a contract that's pretty ironclad and hard to get out of unless you press the send button and send an email to that marketing company at exactly 12:59 on such and such day to break the contract legally, then it rolls you into another year's commitment or something. We see that kind of stuff all the time, but a lot of times in the contract, in the small print, it says that if you ever leave, you don't own the website content or the design or the images or the domain name. And if you want all of that stuff when you leave, you're going to have to pay an exit fee in order to buy it from us. So not only were you paying them every month for the privilege of having that site, but if you ever decide to leave and you want to keep the site, you're going to be paying thousands of dollars to get that stuff out of their company and take it with you wherever you want to go. So to make sure that you own it starts with a simple question. Hey, marketing company that I'm paying thousands of dollars to, do I own my website domain name? Do I own the copy on the site? Do I own the rights to use the images on my site? Do I own the code that underneath the hood that makes my website work, the web forms, the contact, the ability for those web forms to be emailed to me, all of those things that work under the hood? Do you own those things? Could I keep those things, or do I have to pay you money if I ever decide to leave you? And how hard would it be for me to tell you when I'm leaving that I want you to wrap up all of those things and provide those files to me in a portable format that I can take to another marketing company or a web design company or web hosting company, and they would be able to take those files, open them up, and know exactly what to do with them to put my website on their servers, and I can continue doing business the way that I've always done it. So asking the question is where it starts.
Well, and I'll also say this. I've talked to people that say, oh, surely that would never happen. Well, I've got a long-term client that had a .com for his company. He went with Verizon. Verizon did his website for about 18 months. He went with another company even before us. He was still, doing work, trying to figure out what needed to happen. Totally lost his .com. And here's what they said. They said, hey, Mr. Owner, would you like for us to go ahead and renew your domain? And he said, sure. They never told him that, hey, we're going to redo this domain. We're going to renew it for you, but we're going to renew it for you under our name. So basically they stole his domain name. And then when he left, they wouldn't give it to him. They said, no, you authorized that we now own it. So a couple of years later, he comes with us. He tells me the story. He says, I've tried to buy it back 3 or 4 times. I can't find it. It's just crazy. So I went on and actually found it, and he bought it back for $1,000. It cost him $1,000 to buy his original domain name back, but he learned a very valuable lesson. Don't let anybody else pay for your domain names, okay? Because marketing companies, even the big ones like Verizon, I mean, the HubSpot, some of the bigger companies that you hear about all the time, they don't always do what I would like for them to do, which I think is the right thing. And with that, for those of you that are our clients, you own everything. Just
absolutely, yeah.
We
have it no other way.
And because we believe that's the only way to work. So, but you do need to make sure that you control that domain registry, the registration. If you're not paying for it every year, you need to figure out who is, and make sure that whoever it is somebody associated with the business. We have had website launches actually delayed up to 6 months while we track down the person that actually has all the domain registration information. Because when people start, a lot of times it's somebody's brother-in-law's ex-husband's father's, I don't know. I mean, all kinds of stuff that happens that it'll just blow your mind. Sometimes the rabbit holes we run through trying to just run down who has the domain registry so that we can just repoint the DNS. So that is really, really important. So, you can also renew it. Some people renew it yearly because it kind of lets them reminds them about their credit cards, because credit card numbers change, and with all the stuff that goes on, the hacking and stuff. You can renew up to 20 years. But you really need to make sure that you get into that account regularly. So you make sure all your credit card information is set and everything's ready to go. Especially if you're also using that particular domain registry for email as well. If you're running email separately, which we advise everybody to do, some people run it through G Suite, Outlook, whatever the is, but others actually do it through a server. So if you're running it through that server, you do need to make sure that you keep those credit cards updated.
Important. And I think something else to be aware of, and if this has happened to you or you've seen these scams that you get mailed, post it in the comments. But we see a lot of times the Domain Registry of America is like the big one that you get. You get this envelope that says, it's time to renew your domain. Just fill out this, information, or go online to our website and enter in your credit card information, and we'll automatically renew your domain. And people don't often pay attention to, this is how important branding is, right? So people don't pay attention to who they registered their domain with. And it was some name like, 123cheapdomains.com or something like that. And so when it comes time to renew, they can't remember where they registered their domain name. And so somebody says, oh, hey, registry, it's time to re-up. And because I don't know who my domain registration is with, I fill out the information, and suddenly this scam company now owns my domain or controls the domain registry and makes it very difficult for me to leave. And that happens probably once or twice a year. We'll have somebody that will email us and say, well, I just sent my check to renew my domain. We're like, what? No, wait, what? That's not who you're registered with. And suddenly they've got a mess to try to clean up. And so that it happens. Don't, if you get stuff in the mail, ignore it, but mark it on a calendar. Every year my domain renews this date. So back it up 30 days, mark it on your calendar. I need to renew my domain at GoDaddy.com or at 123cheapdomains.com or HostMonster, whatever, wherever you registered your domain, wherever that registry is, then that's where you need to go. Have your login information. Don't lose that login information. Know who has it. Know where to go to get it, set up and renewed.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, just because I love telling real stories when this stuff, because people just think, wow, this stuff really, really happens. So think of it in this sense. If you get something in the mail, who reads your mail? Okay. Real story. The bookkeeper gets the mail. They go through the mail. They take all of the payables out and they do the payables. And so you sit down after the fact and go through the books and everything's fine. And an owner just happened to catch that they keep making this payment every month for their domain registry. It's like 3 months in a row this went on. And they called and said, is this normal? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Got a hold of Fred, found it. It wasn't even, it was just some company that was billing them out of the blue, had nothing to do with their domain, but they were paying $15 a month. So just think about that. If somebody sends mass invoices of $15 a month all across to small businesses in America, how many are actually just going to somebody not paying attention and they're like, yeah, it's $15, I'll pay it. It's just, that kind of stuff. So you really need to keep an eye on this. There's a lot of people that are out there that just don't, they want to part you from your money. And, if it's $15 at a time or $1,500 at a time, they are getting really, what's the word? I can't even think of it. Ingenuity is what I think of. They're very creative.
Yeah, they are ingenious for sure
with their money. So the last thing on this is I really want you guys to absolutely know who you're hosting with and be with a hosting service that will serve you well. I mean, people laugh because they're like, yeah, I'll host my site for $9 a month. Good luck. And I hear from them not too often. It'll go a while, and then, wow, I just got hacked. There's a bunch of cleanup. Can you guys help me? Nope, can't do it. Not gonna do that because I know what all that entails. So if you're our client, you have to host with the people we say. There's a reason for that. If you're not, make sure you have a really good hosting service. It is worth the money to pay for good hosting services. You got hacks, you've got downtime. There's customer service issues. There's updates that don't get done on the real cheap ones. And so what a lot of people don't know is, there's these plug and play websites, and WordPress is one of them. They've got different things that you plug in and use for different areas in your site, for lack of a better word to say there. But if you don't keep those individual plugins up to date, that's one of the ways hackers get in. And it is a main problem, because if a hacker can get into the server side, then basically they can get into all the sites that are on that server. So if you're hosting with someone that has a bunch of websites on the same server and they're not having certain protocols with that, a site that's not you gets hacked, and they can get in on the server side and hack everybody.
And it's out of sight, out of mind. It's one of those things where if we could say, like, if you drove up to your business one day and there's 4 entrances to your business, right? The front door, a rear door, and, the warehouse door. And let's just say 4 entrances. And at each one of those entrances were 3 guys in masks and hoodies who were sitting there trying to pick the lock or bang it open with a crowbar or force entry into your property. 3 or 4 guys at each one of the doors. You would freak out. First you'd call the cops and run them off, but then you'd go straight to the nearest place that you buy locks, wherever and you buy the biggest, beefiest, baddest locks you could, come back and get those things installed, because that would freak you out. Well, guess what? On your website, there's more than 4 doors into your website, into the code, into controlling and hacking your that asset on a lot more than 4 doors. And at every single one of those doors is probably 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 hackers who are trying every day to penetrate and to gain access to your web property for their own reasons, whether it's to steal customer information or use your website hosting to send out spam email, or whatever it may be. That's what we're talking about. But you don't see it, so you don't even think about it. But that's what's going on. You don't skimp on the locks on your property, on your warehouse. So don't skimp on the locks on your hosting online. It really is important. It's something you have to protect, and you really do get what you pay for. And over the years, we have continued to, that is a cost that continues to go up, and we continue to pay it because it is absolutely, it saves our clients bacon every day.
Yeah. So we're going to go into this last point, but before we get there, I just want to take a minute, and if you guys could just, if you're on Facebook, if you could give us a thumbs up on a like, that would be really good. We've been told Facebook likes it when people give everybody thumbs up. So it's like, okay, it makes us feel all right too. So, and also give us a thumbs up on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, that would be great. Really appreciate you guys when you do that. But here's one of the things, I think this is something a lot of people don't talk about, is how in the world do I increase the value of my website property? What is it that I do? So I want to start by thinking, I know some of you guys have rental properties because I've talked to a lot of owners, and I got my first rental property about 3 years ago. And one of the things that I do for that property is I maintain that property as if I still live there. Why do I do that? Well, that property is in a really good area in Nashville, and prices are going crazy. And I've been offered or been told by realtors that I could get $50,000 over asking price for that property. Now, it cash flows really well, so I'm not going to do that. But my point is, that's why you increase the value of any property. That's why you maintain the things on that property, because it's really, really important. I mean, you've got to invest in the improvements and maintenance and all the things in your website, just like if it was a real property sitting right there that cash flow, because that's what it's doing for you. It is cash flowing your business. So to skimp on something that cash flows your business, to me, is kind of crazy.
And, so we talk about deferred maintenance being the number one killer of property value, and not wanting to let the paint start peeling or the weeds start growing or the cracks in the driveway and those sorts of things. For an online website, if we're going to talk about the things that need to be maintained and how they show up, like when you pull up to a property that's not well maintained, there's telltale signs. If you know what you're looking for, and some of them are glaringly obvious, online you may not think about like what those signs might be, but it's going to be things like pages that no longer exist, right? Somebody comes to their website and they get that 404 error message that means we can't find this page. We don't know what you're looking for. And so they're just sitting there looking at an error message. Another thing that's real common is the speed of your site over time. If it's sitting on an old server in a budget hosting plan, your site is starting to crawl because every update that you do to the site makes the code bloated and it just starts running really slow. So now, instead of somebody coming to your website and immediately being served a page, they're sitting there with that little thing spinning, waiting for the page to load and waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally, a piece of it shows up and then half an image, and then you're waiting and waiting and waiting. That's a sign that a business owner is not maintaining their property well. So those are just a couple of examples of what we mean when we talk about maintenance. It's investing in making sure that you have an optimal experience for your customers, and you're cash flowing that property, like Taylor was saying, the best you possibly can.
Yeah, and one of the things, I've been doing a lot of these playbooks lately of companies that are coming in, service companies. Some of them are chimney and plumbing and HVAC and builders and just a lot of different industries coming in. And one of the things that I am seeing over and over and over again that people are really missing is the on-page optimization piece. Everybody's going to big pictures, little squares showing whatever, what everybody's going to do. And that's fine, but don't lose sight of the fact that Google relies on text. Even now, Google relies on text in order to serve your websites up to the searchers. So you've got to know what people are putting in that search bar and what they're searching for and be able to match that on your website. Now, does that mean that you have to have, 2,000 words on every page? No, it doesn't. But you've got to make sure you have all the right titling, the right descriptions, and that you are talking about the subject matter for that page on those individual pages. That has not ever changed. So, but I've seen it over and over and over again. And a lot of it is people redoing websites and getting a little bit too fancy and not sticking to the tried and true. It's almost to me like if I went into a house and said, oh, we got a termite issue. Forget about termites. I'm just going to paint it. And it's that kind of a deal where it's the structure you're just kind of going, I'll paint it because so it'll look good, Well, you can't forget about the structure of on-page, the optimization piece. It's just you've got to maintain that. So no matter who you work with, make sure they are paying attention to that on-page optimization piece. Absolutely, absolutely critically important for search.
Something else that we didn't add to this list, but as I'm sitting here thinking about it, to answer the question, how do you increase the value of your website property? I think one of the things that not many business owners do unless they work with a marketing company that has the ability to help them with this is being able to track and know exactly what their website is bringing them in terms of new business every month. And we're not talking about just website visitors. We're talking about like conversions on the site and investing in making sure that your website is converting to new customers. So what does that look like? Like web forms and tracking numbers and the ability to be able to see reports on exactly where your website is helping you bring in new customers and communicate with the customers on your site. Chat is another thing, right? The ability using your website as the first point of contact for all communication with customers in your business. And I think that I know that raises the value of your property, because when you have that data and you can show that to a potential buyer of your business and you can show them the website on average for this month every year brings in roughly 126 new customers or new calls. Half of those come from the web form, the other half are direct phone number calls, and some percentage of that is chat or whatever, right? If you can break it down for them and show them how the property that you own, the real estate online that you own that's part of your business is truly an asset for that prospective buyer who's going to be able to continue running that business and make bank, that's part of their cash flow strategy too. So tracking, I think, is something we should have added to the list.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And also the grunt test. I think that's something that people don't take time to look at. It's amazing because I look at so many websites. There's two things that I want to approach a website for. The very first thing that I do when I look at a new website is I look at it as if I'm a client looking for what they're doing. I looked at a construction I can't talk today. A construction website earlier today, doing a playbook, and it was amazing. It was beautiful, beautiful pictures. They had so many of the right things. I had to scroll all the way down through this huge homepage to get to the bottom just to find a phone number. I mean, what a simple thing that we don't think about. Every phone number needs to be up in the header right there, because they've been studies. Sometimes people have seen you, they know who you are, and they come to your website for one thing and one thing only, just to get a phone number. And so I pulled them up on mobile, same thing, had to go all the way through all this stuff on a mobile phone to get their phone number, and I hit it with my finger and it wasn't callable. So what good is it? So you can have the most wonderful, robust, beautiful website out there in the world, but if it doesn't function and you don't give the searcher and the people that hit those sites, whether no matter what device they're on, what they need at the time they're looking, it doesn't matter how pretty it is. It just doesn't matter. If it's vague and you can't, which was another thing, I couldn't tell what these guys were doing. Part of it was home builder, part of it was renovation, and all of a sudden they've got homes listed on there. So I thought maybe they were doing real estate too. So how many things are you doing on there? I mean, it's related, but I mean, when you're in search, those are three totally different things. So those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. One of the things that hit me just the other day was a statement that I read about how we confuse our customers. And of course, some of you guys on here are our customers. And it was like, yeah, we've been through that. I mean, I've gotten feedback. I don't know what you do for us. I don't know what this is. I don't know, all the different things. And one of the reasons we're doing what we're doing right now is to try to make sure and take that confusion away. At the same time, you need to ask yourself, when I'm on my website, when I go through it, when I look at it, am I confusing my customers? Because a confused customer is not going to be a customer.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So clarity, the best way to know what needs to go on your website is to look at the frequently asked questions that you get from your existing customers. Every time the phone rings, there's a series of questions they ask, and the familiar ones, the frequently asked ones. All of that serves as the basis of good content on your site. And the reason you want it on there is because that's the stuff that doesn't confuse your customer. That's the stuff they really want to know. You're not hiding the facts that they want within all this flowery stuff that they don't care about. You're just getting down to the brass tacks, that grunt test that Taylor was talking about, right? Have problem, need fix, this site good, call number, So, that's the grunt test, and that's really what you need on your website. That's how you don't confuse your customers and get the result you want.
No, I think that's really, really good. The other thing that business owners have been and marketing companies have done a really bad job at this, and I think we are included in that. But what I'm finding out more and more, the more I read, the more I study, yes, you want to rank. Oh, that's great. You want to be on the maps. That's awesome. But it is not the end all be all. Where ranking, where used to, if you were in the number one position, man, you won. I mean, you won the day. It was awesome. And so everybody was trying to be in that number one position. But searchers, consumers are a heck of a lot smarter today. I mean, they're going on multiple platforms. They're checking out your Facebook pages. They're checking out your Yelp listing. They're checking out you on Instagram. They're really going through and making sure that you are who you say you are. I mean, I've heard, these things where people do these map listings and there's nothing but a field. When people go up, people are starting to check maps and make sure it's a real location. They want to deal with real people, real location, that they're in their area. A lot of them want to deal with local, especially when it's service businesses. I mean, these are things people are doing. So it's not always just about being in the first positions. There have been cases where people have seen somebody number one on the maps and gone in to check their reviews. I don't know if you've ever been on there, but you go down far enough, it says here's some other companies you may want to check out. You ever seen that on Google My Business? And they start checking those other companies out, and they check multiple companies until they find the one that's got really good reviews, all that. Well, guess what? If you're that company they found through that, they didn't even find you on search. But it was great because you worked on your reviews. Even if you weren't in the same map pack, that 3-pack, this is what's going on today. So it's not just about how you rank. It really is about how you look to people everywhere. It's your reputation online. It is holistic with everything, and you can't lose sight of that.
That's good.
I think that's it.
One thing I do want to note when we were talking about the grunt test, that whole idea of the grunt test is something we took from Donald Miller and his Business Made Simple University. Donald's great. You can check him out online. I didn't want to plagiarize that without giving him credit. He's here in Nashville. He's a good guy. So if you're not familiar with Donald, you can check him out there. He's the one that came up with that grunt test analogy.
And Derek, man, I just want to tell you, I empathize with your struggle, not personally, but I was the one that drove Carter to the hospital a few years ago for major back surgery. So there's nothing like having a bad back. So dude, I hope you get better. I really, really do.
Yeah, bud.
Yeah, if you guys have not received your playbook in the mail and your clients of ours, please let me know. I was able to go over it. We had a client that came passed through this last week. We sat down and just went over it, and it was really good. More than happy to do that in a Zoom call with you. If you want to just contact me, Taylor@sparkmarketer.com. If you guys have other small businesses, service industry businesses in your area that you think should look at a playbook and maybe see what's going on in their web presence, happy to do that. You can just tell them to go to sparkmarketer.com/playbook, and we'll get that done for them, and really happy to do that.
And I just want to specify, this is not us like talking about businesses like yours in the playbook. This is us talking about your business, right? After looking at your business online, this playbook is very customized to your business. So it really is a value, and it's something you ought to think about. Even if we don't have a relationship working with you as a result of this playbook, it's going to give you some good information as you go on your way.
Yeah, I've spent up to 2 hours on one. So sometimes you just got to dig in and dig into whatever you got. So it's always fun. Hey, guys, I want to thank y'all so much. There's 4, 5, 6 of you that are coming in every week. We hope this is of value to you. We are really, really wanting to just kind of up our game as a marketing company and really stress what we can help you with. If there's anything that we ever talk about that you don't understand or want to make sure is being done correctly, or that we are doing with your website, please reach out to me personally or your account owner. Absolutely happy to go through that with you. We are here to serve you, and just want to thank you so much. And we will see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.